Welcome to this episode of the Harpreet Singh Show. I'm your host Harpreet Singh from Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. In today's program, we're going to have a wonderful discussion with the two of our guests, and one of my guests is my co-host, Dr. Arun Garg from Canada India Network Society. And as you know, every month we try to get you on something important regarding our health, and today is going to be one of such kind of discussion. We have Dr. Roshani Sanghani from India, who is going to join us from Mumbai, and our topic is very, very interesting. And I won't take much time and introduce, first of all, Dr. Arun Garg, who will introduce Dr. Roshani Sanghani. So, Dr. Garg and Dr. Sanghani, welcome to the program.
Welcome and thank you for having us.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful, wonderful.
So, Dr. Garg, we would
Thank
like
you.
you to introduce Dr. Roshani Sanghani. If you could tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about her.
absolutely. It's a real pleasure to be introducing our guest today, Harpreet.
G.
As you know, we have been passionate for last 10 years how to build healthy civil society. And in this journey, you come across certain people who make you feel that it's all worth it. And our guest today, Dr. Roshani Sanghani, is one of those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome, Dr. Sanghani. As an introduction, Dr. Sanghani is a very unique qualification. She is American board certified endocrinologist, but decided to go back to her roots and live in India. So for the last 12 years, she's been practicing uh, endocrinology, metabolic diseases, and many chronic diseases and community uh, practices in Mumbai. She is a diabetic educator, personal trainer, very unique mix of East and West, as I would say, best of East, best of West. She
Mm-hmm.
represents that. Mindful eating facilitator. She's member of Society of Metabolic Diseases. She is a member of a group called Diet Doctors, and she did an interview with them, which had 150,000 and more visits
Mm-hmm.
and talks about lifestyle. And what I would like to end my introduction with is her goal is to help people. And listen to this, RPG, you will get a real kick out of it. Her goal is to help people awaken to inner expertise in self care,
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's excellent.
make lifestyle changes to achieve better health with less medications,
Mm-hmm.
prevent disease, and achieve their own personal health goals. What better? She represents the vision of Canada India Network Society. So we are really, really pleased to have her. And she'll be talking with us about reversing diabetes. She's bringing out a book
Mm-hmm.
with cultural context of India. So we'll be talking about this. So we are in for a real treat.
Wonderful, excellent. Once again, Dr. Roshni, welcome. And the kind of work that you're doing is really the need of the hour. Well, as Dr. Garg has already mentioned, that with your expertise today, we are in an epidemic. Everywhere in the world, we are seeing our health is going from bad to worse, whether it is India or Canada or America, wherever we are. So now the question that arises is, first of all, as Dr. Garg has mentioned, given your credentials, you have a vast experience in this field. Why do you feel in this 21st century, when we are achieving everything, why is it that health still is not our top priority? And that is the reason, whether it is diabetes or blood pressure or heart health issues, these are on the rise. So, what has been your experience being in America as well as in India? What do you observe? Why people are still not conscious about their eating habits?
Oh, gosh. First of all, thanks, both of you, Harpreet ji and Dr. Arun, for me on. It's really an honor to meet you and meet your audience. And I think there's so much that we all have in common. So, first of all, thank you for having me here. But I'll take the question is, why is this happening in spite of so much progress? Maybe in one line, if I have to sort of put a very quick answer to that, is the world has gone towards an economy of instant gratification, do
Hmm.
things faster. The idea that technology speeds things up. I put a buy button on my phone and it's at my doorstep within hours.
Hmm.
I get my food home delivered. If I have a craving at night, it's within 10 minutes. It's easier and easier to make unhealthy decisions
Mm-hmm.
whether you call it addictions to instant gratification on our mobile phones or shortcuts, the fact that everything is available on the internet at our fingertips. We really don't have to work too hard to get the basics of life now, at least for the audience that's maybe listening to this talk. Of course, there are people who are still struggling with basic needs of survival. But if we look at the people who are suffering from diseases of abundance
Mm-hmm.
or the lifestyle diseases that are the epidemic that we're talking about, oversupply, it's maybe the tendency of the mind, which is it's the way we're wired. When we were
Mm-hmm.
in the wild, we always had to think about immediate dangers. Run away from this predator, find this berry which is hanging on this tree and eat it now, because we had to hunt and we had to gather. Only as we became more and more civilized in the so many years has the tendency become so civilized. And yet our instinctive animal response in the brain is still wired even now to prefer instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
Now we differ from the animal kingdom, and this is where our spiritual scriptures of India tell us that we have buddhi, we have intellect, where we can restrain the racing mind. But most of us have lost that ability and lost that skill to be aware of how the emotions are taking over and driving us for these immediate results. And if I look at most of the chronic lifestyle diseases that are driven by habit change or but driven by habits and choices that we make every day,
Mm-hmm.
it's harder and harder to make those healthy decisions. It's easier and easier to fall prey to the consumerism and multi-million dollar research that benefits from us making suboptimal choices.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a wonderful description of what we are in today. And Dr. Garg, as Dr. Roshni has mentioned, I would like you to take over from here because the vision of CINS is the same as has been described by Dr. Roshni. Question is diseases of abundance, as she mentioned. We have everything, and technology further and has added on to this fuel to fire because everything is just at the touch of a button. So here also, Dr. Garg, we are finding the same thing, especially amongst the younger generation. Hardly anyone wants to cook at home. Everybody just wants to get it from outside, and our taste buds have been, using this as a simple example where we can talk about that everything is available. So we are going away from the basic. Even in our Indian homes, also we are seeing the same thing amongst the youngsters. How much are you concerned, Dr. Garg, about this? And as Dr. Roshni mentioned, that this mindset has to change. But are we ready for that change?
Yeah, wonderful. I think given the time constraint and given our passion, both Dr. Sanghani and myself, in to do something, I'm going to focus more on solutions and outcomes and
Right.
make use of our expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I will start by saying a couple of comments. I think there is an opportunity here. We realize there is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
but also there is an opportunity. And one of the opportunity is, and both Dr. Sanghani and I represent that, and that is the best of the East and best of the West. We have to make use of the technology. There is no way of going back and turn into a dark ages and say, yeah, things will be good. At the same time, there is an opportunity of a role of the individual and the mind and the intellect as so aptly described in Vedic philosophy, and I think we need to bring that. So I think the big opportunity is really how practitioners like Dr. Sanghani, and there are several others locally which are coming, we're bringing this out.
Mm-hmm.
How can we work with the individuals in empowering them in their own upliftment of health and
Mm-hmm.
awareness that they have a role to play. And
Right.
that's the place where we have walked away from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would like to hear from Dr. Singhani how she is putting this in real practice
Mm-hmm.
and what some of the cases she has, some of the patients she has, what's her life is like as a medical doctor in Mumbai among, I mean, India has gone berserk in terms of taking pride in being a diabetes capital and not emphasizing
Mm-hmm.
through practitioners because Indian people are very respectful of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and practitioners. So physicians have a huge role to play.
Yeah.
So today, my challenge is to my colleagues, my fellow physicians, how do we bring this change? And I would be quite strong in this, that it's people like Dr. Sanghani and few of my colleagues locally, we have an opportunity to bring this change, and let's start.
Very true. Yes, Dr. Sanghani.
Sure. So I agree, and technology brought us together, so we can't say it's all bad. We're able to connect from so far away
Oh,
and
yeah,
share ideas.
absolutely.
So I agree. Yeah. And yes, what are we doing? I think there's been a journey for me personally because I don't think it would be right for me to not be fully honest that I was one of those physicians who was created from that same system where the healthcare practitioners were not playing a role. In terms of prevention or reversal of disease, we are allopathic doctors.
Yeah.
We are supposed to react once the patient gets sick. And it came from the surgical and antibiotic era. And yet when it came to chronic disease, the model doesn't work. You don't treat chronic diseases the way you treat acute diseases. And everything that I do with metabolic and lifestyle diseases is in the chronic space. And so what I've had to do over time is realize that this is a completely new skill set. I don't have that skill set from my training. How do I help people with chronic disease if I'm trying to actually help them get better? It's not happening from my allopathic prescription. Maybe the prescriptions are delaying complications. Maybe they are suppressing symptoms, but are they curing the chronic diseases at the root? And the answer was a clear no. That was
Right.
not happening. If you give somebody a diabetes prescription, the diabetes doesn't go away. They have to keep taking it, and all you're doing is suppressing the glucose levels. You're not really actually getting the diabetes at the root or at the origin to come out. And so I had this conflict as a professional is I don't think I'm doing best for my patient. And as I mentioned in my diet doctor interview, I had to be sort of really shown this by a particular patient who wanted to make the lifestyle changes. And it became a real sort of catalytic conversation for me. And since then, it's been a gradual process, but if I have to crystallize it now, I realize clearer than ever is everyone who comes to the doctor's office, if only the doctor could get their ego out of the picture, and I speak for myself, is this visit is not about me. This visit is not about a person trying to stay sick. It's about a person who has an innate human desire to do well and to thrive and to flourish. And if I can tap into that and connect with stuff that matters most to them, that's when we are able to awaken the inner expert. And that's when they are willing to put in the effort for those delayed results. Because if I change my lifestyle today, my diabetes is not gone tomorrow. The food temptations or the laziness temptations will be there tomorrow, but the diabetes reversal is not tomorrow. So there's a whole psychological bit to it in terms of helping people sort of bring in the positive effects of good behaviors or healthy behaviors, which would actually have a delayed effect or a delayed benefit. Can you give some instant gratification for that? So I'll give you an example. If we say, let's go to the gym and work out, I go today. I don't have popping muscles by tomorrow. I have to show up and exercise regularly, multiple times a week for years before it starts to look glamorous. Most of it is not glamorous at all. So what do we do with our patients is we say, you know what, send us a selfie. Send us a picture from your gym of how you feel with the background. Even if you just showed up with your exercise clothes and you got yourself a nice water bottle from which you're having your fresh, cool water to sip on in the gym. Something that lets them get an instant gratification for something that's only going to give delayed results.
Right.
So that's one of the habit trick changes that I picked up from a book called Atomic Habits. And so I keep reading, I keep trying to find how can I use behavioral economy theories in medicine? How can I use psychology theories in medicine? And there are so many other skill sets that you need if you're going to be an allopath who wants to help people reverse disease causing habits.
Interesting. Behavioral changes, what you mentioned, is very important, and instant gratification, as you pointed out, can help us, continue on the path which we want to choose. So, Dr. Garg and Dr. Sanghani, it's time for a short break. We'll go for a break and we'll be shortly back. And then, the journey that you have started, where lifestyle changes, what we are talking about. So as we know the challenge, as Dr. Garg mentioned, the problem is there, but the solution. So the time we have with us today, we would like again the solutions from your side, as you've given a very good example about a selfie at the gym that instantly boosts you that yes, I'm doing something and there is someone who's monitoring me, and I should be on this path. But apart from that, what we need to do today is, as you mentioned, we need to start working on it. But as doctors, it is said that charity begins at home. The kind of training that you get, starting from the beginning when you're in the medical school till the end, when you come into the profession and start treating the patients on your own, charity, as I said, begins at home. And most of the time, the doctors also are not having a good diet because you're always on the rush, the constant pressure on you. You don't have time. So a doctor who has not got that kind of environment also makes a lot of difference. So what all needs to be done, whereas we start from yourself as a medical professional itself, and then further on spread this message to the common people. We'll talk all about this after this short break. So Dr. Garg and Sanghani, please keep on watching and we'll be shortly back.
हर रंग है साडे को, हर मॉडल, हर एक दी अपनी वक्री पहचान। असीं एक परिवार हाँ, साडा कर्म है अगे वधाउणा, सफर नूं सौखा बनाउणा। बसंत मोटर्स, तुहाडे नाल, तुहाडे करके।
है जुल्म ढाने का अंदाज भी कितना हंसी, हमारी जान पर बनाई है जब जब उसने अंगड़ाई ली। कभी खामोश रहते हैं, कभी शोर होता है। मोहब्बत में शरारत का मजा कुछ और होता है। दिल को जज्बात का तोहफा, खामोशियों को बात का तोहफा, खूबसूरती में जड़ी नजाकत अदाओं की चांद से मुखड़े को चांद सा तोहफा।
भारत ज्वेलर्स, सच्चे प्यार की चमक जैसा। फाइल बिजनेस सेंटर सरी।
ਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਰੀ, ਡੈਲਟਾ, ਰਿਚਮੰਡ, ਐਬਸਫੋਰਡ ਜਾਂ ਵੈਂਕੂਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਵਾਂ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਰੈਨੋਵੇਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ? ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਤਜਰਬੇਕਾਰ ਬਿਲਡਰ, ਇੱਕ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟਿਵ ਇੰਟੀਰੀਅਰ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਰ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਾਰ ਸਕਣ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਜਾਂ ਸੰਦੀਪ 6048259295 ਉੱਤੇ।
Once again, welcome back to the program. Our guests today are Dr. Arun Garg and Dr. Roshani Sanghani, who is an endocrinologist from Mumbai. And the focus of our talk today is how lifestyle changes can lead to good health. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And let's get back over to Dr. Sanghani and learn more from her as to what needs to be done. So Dr. Sanghani, as I mentioned before the break about, the kind of environment in which the medical professionals are coming out also is not focusing on good diet. And that further on leads to that the kind of training you have that keeps on passing on to the patients also. So what do you think, how the change needs to start from the from the cradle and then pass on to further to patients?
Gosh, that's a tough question, because another sort of, again, I'm so fascinated with how all of us get caught up in this, whether you call it cognitive dissonance or you call it sort of the familiarity bias, is if I hear the environment around me repeating the same things, doing the same things again and again, my subconscious mind cannot deal with questioning it every time. So it parks it in a sort of space of, if it's happening so often, it must be right. So when we get into the medical college, the canteen is going to be giving us carbohydrate predominant lunches or tiffins. I remember whether it was my home or it was my lunch, which was a catered lunch, or the canteen lunch, my tiffin distribution would be 3 to 4 chapatis, a container full of rice, a little bit of spicy bhaji or spicy vegetable, and a very little amount of dal, and maybe one fried or salad type of a farsan kind of thing. As a snack. And if it was the hospital tray where the patient is admitted and we are giving them the diabetic diet, when you take rounds and if you glance at those trays, they're carbohydrate rich. Yeah. So somewhere in your, and guess what? From my children's science books, even now, one generation later, it says in the textbooks, carbohydrates are energy giving foods, proteins are bodybuilding foods. So there are pictures, not only in my book, but even my staff members whose kids are like 10 years younger than me, younger than mine, has pictures of wafers and bread and potatoes and rice as energy giving foods. So if we keep conditioning this, then just because you got an MBBS or a medical degree on the wall, you're not going to suddenly question what's being done in society
Absolutely.
because we don't get enough nutritional education in our training anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a blind spot for us until you get a big slap on your face. Either you yourself, as a healthcare provider, those guidelines or those advice don't work for you. There are so many doctors in the lifestyle medicine field who had to personally see their own bodies go through obesity, diabetes. I have so many healthcare professionals who are sick with the same conditions that we say come to patients.
Right.
Doesn't spare you just because you have a medical degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, change begins at home. And I had my own pre-diabetes when I was going through a massive stress patch. Mine was probably years of carbohydrate predominant eating and a sedentary life, along with massive, massive stress. And those three things, along with my genetic tendency, gave me a big wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, we don't want that it should be this way, that healthcare providers turn only when they have a difficult experience or a bad experience. The idea is to make it more positive and be part of educational systems. So I hope that that's where medical education will go, where as much as in third MBBS we used to run away from this subject called preventive and social medicine, it was called PSM in India, and we used to run away from that subject. We wanted to be the glamorous operating, prescribing, doctors who had all the power of knowledge that nobody else has. And preventive and social is too straightforward, too simple, and too boring, not challenging. And yet, my daily work now is preventive and social medicine so that we can get you off of those prescriptions.
Very right. And Dr. Garg, you have over 6 decades of experience in this field. You have been in the hospitals and you've been interacting with doctors. And, as Dr. Sanghani has mentioned, it's really very important. Is some effort being done towards this end also? Has this kind of thinking started percolating down amongst the administrators that we need to provide an environment of where there's something better for the physicians also?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's happening is that as society, in one way, has become healthier, and as the technology has allowed certain
Mm-hmm.
acute medicine, the number of people are living longer, so the chronic diseases have gone up, and I think society will demand that there be capacity in the society for management of these chronic diseases. So I think physicians will be part of the solution in working with other groups of people. So I would like to say that what Dr. Sanghani is saying is really the skill sets required.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to give as much emphasis to chronic diseases as we do to acute diseases.
Right.
Acute diseases and acute care is important, and it must be cultivated. Capacity must be built, better hospitals, better investigations. When you have a heart attack, in spite of what happens, you still have to look after. But we have to make a commitment for chronic care, which skill sets for that are very different,
Right.
and you need individual practitioners, but most important solution here is building community capacity,
Right.
especially in our community, in our culture. We are very contextual in terms of community, and I think we need to build that capacity, and that has been missing. And
Right.
that's what my effort now are, to build this community capacity, which is multidisciplinary,
Mm-hmm.
which is technology driven, but is about prevention, promotion, but most important, empowerment of skill sets. And you don't have to make big changes, that's the beauty of it. Small changes can lead to big outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
especially diabetes. Because if you go into diabetes, what is the root cause of such a high diabetes in South Asian population? And as Dr. Sanghani was saying, it's multifactorial. So genetic plays a role, epigenetics plays a role, but lifestyle also plays a huge role. And
Right.
that's what we need to kind of work through the efforts of this show, our communication, education, and work of Dr. Sanghani. So I am all for, and Canada Indian Network Society is committed to bring this change in the community through community capacity.
Right.
And that's what we will be doing, because even in Canada, we have such a unique healthcare, but it's stretched. It's crying out for help, and I think we cannot just continue to have same solutions to find same problem solved.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have innovation here. and our innovation is community engagement. And the key piece, and I would like Dr. Sanghani to expand on it, how her practices do that, and
Right.
that is empowerment of the intellectual, empowerment of the individual.
Right.
And I think in our culture, empowerment of the individual through a concept of intellect and yoga and Vedic philosophy is the key solution here. And I think we really need to build on that. So I'll be very interested in hearing from Dr. Singhani what she thinks of that and how we could make this better.
Absolutely, Dr. Garg, what you have pointed out. So, Dr. Sanghani, if you can tell us how to empower an individual not to get enticed by a samosa or a gulab jamun or a jalebi, because these things keep on adding into our body, and we see obesity and diabetes and heart problems and other issues. So, please, over to you and explain to us in details as to where to start and how to start.
Right. Well, first of all, who doesn't like a good hot samosa? I think we need to celebrate the samosa. It's world famous, it's delicious, and a well made samosa, I think it deserves to be enjoyed every now and then. I think the question is not to sort of, and this is where my sort of multiple hacks come into play, is I learned a lot from the course I got trained in mindful eating, where food was not supposed to be labeled as good or bad. Food could be labeled as, for example, the samosa and jalebi, if we talk, or gulab jamun. Those are foods that give us pleasure. And food for pleasure is a real thing. It's a very basic human need, and we all like it. We all live lives that are socially connected. Indians are no exception to that. And so to sit and enjoy a food for pleasure is not wrong. So why should the healthcare community take this extreme antagonistic judgmental stance, which is so rigid, which says if you eat that one samosa is what gives you diabetes? That's not even true. It's a sum total of everything that happens before and after that one samosa, where we put too much of focus on one event rather than look at the chronic pattern. So what we do is talk to people about this. Is okay, on one hand, you would like to have the samosa once in a while for your pleasure, and on the other hand, you're here in this consult because sounds like you want to find ways to manage your diabetes with less medication. And that's actually a coaching style. That's actually a coaching technique where what's the point of me fighting the person, pulling the samosa out of their hand? It's a useless fight, right? They're not going to stop it, just because I scolded them in my office. That's just me fooling myself, being extremely arrogant that because I said so, because I have now passed the law, that these people will not misbehave. So we need to remove this negative connotation to eating for pleasure and empowerment. It's like a democracy. People don't just get rights in a democratic country. They also have duties. So when we say empowerment also comes with accountability. And this could come into the space of yo-yo dieting as well. So why stick to only diabetes? There are so many people who don't even have diabetes but struggle with weight. They struggle with guilt or difficult relationships with food or yo-yo dieting. So first of all, can we help them find the balance between accountability as well as empowerment? So if I have to use the samosa example, when we put it this way, is looks like you want to find a balance between eating for pleasure as well as eating for health. There's both. There's empowerment, you can eat it, and there's accountability. Is you're also going to measure and study the effect of this samosa on your health because it matters to you, not because it matters to Roshani. I mean, this person is not suicidal. This person is not trying to self-harm. This person's trying to have a good time. So why don't we allow them to be accountable for that?
Very right. Absolutely. That's an interesting observation.
Absolutely. Well said, and I couldn't have said better. I think there is a real opportunity to build on these principles.
Right.
And nobody, and certainly we and our work, and as Dr. Sanghani is saying, it's not saying good or bad. It's really is understanding and moderation.
Right.
And that's the other cultural thing which in our community is prevalent. We are brought up with moderation, the balance, and we just need to bring that back. And I think I'll be remiss if I don't use the example of added sugar. There is the only one
Mm-hmm.
simple thing because of the chronicity. Having a samosa once in a while, having a jalebi once in a while is no problem. But if you have 4 or 5 or 6 times a day something which becomes chronic itself,
Right.
and I think one of the low hanging fruit is added sugar in your beverages like tea and coffee. And tea is such a common social, and I think if we could stop just adding that 1 teaspoon of sugar, which is 5 grams of sugar, which is as much sugar as circulating in your blood at any given time, we could do wonders. So I think our listeners and viewers, if they remember one thing, and that is start with very simple thing, and that is added sugar in your tea and coffee. And I amazes how much sugar people add, and they just do it without. And I think Dr. Sanghani has training and experience in mindfulness. They do it without thinking. So
Absolutely.
I think there is hope, and I would say that this show and our conversation hopefully is a spark for people to bring that change.
Very true. Absolutely. And Dr. Singhani, as Dr. Garg has mentioned, mindful eating habits, how can we become mindful while eating? Because very rightly you have said, if there is a samosa in front of me and a fruit, plate over there, my instincts will be towards the samosa only. Let's have that because that gives me pleasure, and that's what most of the people do. But how can we bring in mindfulness in eating habits? We'll go for a break, and once we are back, we'll learn from you as to how we need to work on this particular topic, whereby which can help us, and how fast food is fastly, kind of impacting our health. Because today life has become absolutely fast, and fast food also, especially amongst the youngsters, is very much prevalent. So how that is having a much worse impact on our bodies as compared to the previous years. We'll talk all about this just after this short break.
ਘਰ ਇੱਕ ਐਸੀ ਥਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਰ ਕੋਈ ਆਪਣੀ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਸੁਨਹਿਰੀ ਪਲ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰਿਆ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਤੀਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਪੂਰੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਦ ਕਿਸੇ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਨੂੰ ਸਜੇ ਹੋਏ ਘਰ 'ਚ ਬਦਲਿਆ ਜਾਵੇ। ਨਵੇਂ ਘਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਰੇਮਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਫਿਨਿਸ਼ਿੰਗ ਤੱਕ, ਡ੍ਰੇਪਰੀ, ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਡੈਕੋਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਸੈਸਰੀਜ਼ ਤੱਕ, ਤੁਸੀਂ SK ਹੋਮ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੁਪਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਨੂੰ ਹਕੀਕਤ 'ਚ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਕੰਟੈਕਟ ਕਰੋ ਸੰਦੀਪ ਕੌਰ 6048259295।
ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਮੈਨ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ? ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਮੋਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਓਨਰ ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਦਾ ਉਦਾਹਰਨ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕਾਰ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਖ ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਮੋਟਰਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਸਰੀ ਦਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਟਰੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋੜ ਦੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੋੜੀਂਦੇ ਟਰੱਕਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗਾਈਡੈਂਸ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸਪੇਸ, ਮੋਡੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਫਿਊਲ ਐਫੀਸ਼ੀਐਂਸੀ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਧਿਆਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੁਖੀ ਬਾਟ ਟਰੱਕ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਟਰੱਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਟੌਰ।
Once again, welcome back to the program. This program is being brought to you with the support of AMC Insurance. If you're looking for home, auto, travel, business, life or recreational insurance, you can depend upon them. They have 9 branches in the lower mainland to serve you, and they're open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. For more information, you can call at 604-507-6666. Our next sponsor is Agnihotri Immigration. If you want to immigrate to Canada, you have any question regarding immigration, you can depend upon the services of Neera Agnihotri. She has been working as a certified immigration consultant since 2006, and she is known for her honest and reliable information. For more information, you can call her at 604-597-2284. Our guest today is Dr. Sanghani and Dr. Garg, and the important topic is as to how lifestyle changes can lead to better health. So let's get back over, and in this last segment, we learned some practical tips also from Dr. Sanghani, which we can incorporate in our daily life so that we have good health. So, Dr. Sanghani, as before the break, my question was about how fast food is impacting us and how to bring in that mindfulness while eating.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to touch on that. Maybe sometimes the word mindfulness scares people, again, because we've never really sat down and done a mind-body exercise or become aware of our thoughts and things like that. Most of us don't even meditate on a regular basis. So what mindfulness or mindful eating can do, and I'm going to tie it to the examples that Dr. Garg was sharing before the break, were, let's say somebody wants to have a sugar-sweetened beverage, and they are now thinking about how to make lifestyle changes. So rather than me telling them, hey, sugar is bad for you, because most people don't need to travel all the way to the doctor's office to hear that. Most people already know. So instead of me lecturing them, we want to actually invite them to experience it through their body. And this is where it becomes real, is the mind is so powerful and so tricky. Is if I say I like roti, and if a minute later I say I don't like roti, it's just happening in my head. But in the world, it doesn't actually mean anything. It only means something to myself, and I'm just changing my thoughts 180, and I can experience a completely different reality outside of me just by changing my thoughts. So when I think about sugar, or if I think about my food, it's if I only stay in my head, then I may not get the truth. But we have access to that in our body. So we ask our patients, is once you've had something that's rich in sugar, how do you feel? And as Dr. Garg was mentioning about the mindless bit of it, that's where our coaching comes into the picture, is when people are doing whatever they're doing, it's a non-judgmental safe space. We are not going to tell them that they've been misbehaving or doing bad or cheating things. We don't call pleasurable eating as cheating. So we ask them to enter it into my app. And when they do that, they start to see their carbohydrate count of this is my daily carbohydrate count. And as they see that, and we show them that, hey, you've had this processed food, you've had this fast food, we show them the protein count. And the same people who are making these choices, when we keep bringing it back, rather than judging the food as good or bad in our mind, because we can flip labels. I can say gulab jamun is bad, I can say gulab jamun is good. When I'm at the wedding, gulab jamun is good. When I'm at the doctor's office, gulab jamun is bad. So my mind is flip-flopping, isn't it?
Right.
So if you experience it in your body, how did I feel after the gulab jamun? How was the experience? Can I break it down and have one bite and take it in? How does that feel if I pair it with protein beforehand? So this is again, since we're talking about technology helping, we've seen, this is a tip for the audience, is if they were to wear the technology, the continuous glucose monitor on their arm, and the same gulab jamun, and if they were to have protein on their plate, if they were to take the protein first, so the science has actually proven this, protein and vegetables first, carbohydrates and sugars last, there will be less of a glucose spike compared to starting with the glucose or the carbohydrate or the sugar and then followed by the other things.
Right.
And the other beautiful thing is when you do that, if you tell people to first go for the protein, again, not because we say so, because we have degrees on the wall, you're not doing it for me, but see how you feel. Check how your hunger is. Most people don't like to feel hungry. That's why people don't last on calorie restricted diets or low calorie diets, because they feel hungry, because they're feeling deprived in their head. Here, there's no question of deprivation. We're saying, check how you feel in the body when you've taken more protein. Are you hungry or are you full? Do you have cravings, sugar cravings, sweet tooth? Most people report better energy, less sweet cravings, and the ability to sort of, it's not even then about resist, because they've learned how to listen to the body, that the plate of snacks could be in front of me, but if I'm not hungry, why do I want it? And that's a mindfulness thing, where the body is helping you decide in this present moment. Because you can't be hungry in the past or the future, no? Although, when you buy movie tickets now, you can plan for popcorn at 3 p.m., even though you don't know if you're going to be hungry at 3 p.m. But you're going to buy the popcorn in the future. Whether you'll be hungry or not, at that point in real time, your body's going to tell you. So that's the yogic concept, right? Dr. Garg is laughing. But the yoga concept is, what is yoga? Yoga, union of what? Mind and body.
Yeah.
The body is keeping you in the present moment. The body doesn't lie. The body doesn't tell stories. It's only the mind that's full of stories.
Very true. That's what it is. How to control the mind, not to let the mind take control of you, but you have to become the master of the mind. And Dr. Garg, Dr. Sanghani has mentioned it very nicely, what you always propagate about kitna khaएं, kab khaएं, kaise khaएं, and that mindfulness has to be there while we are consuming something. Dr. Garg.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Dr. Sanghani has given some words of wisdom here. And I would say just reaffirm that for our viewers and listeners, because the most important thing is we need to connect with the individuals. It's how your body feels. And this idea of heavy meal and then tiredness comes with it. Try with less carbohydrate meal and see how body feels. And I think body, biochemically speaking, it speaks for itself, and that enlightenment. So it's really education. It's really is engagement, and it's really is empowerment, but
Right.
also enlightenment about the impact of lifestyle on how you feel. And once that connection comes, I think we are a winner. And for chronic diseases, and I would say I'll be remiss if we don't kind of incorporate Dr. Sanghani as our team now, because I think Dr. Sanghani, there is a work to be done globally, individually, but also collectively. And physicians can really make a huge difference. So I hope we could count on you and your support on ongoing basis, because you have done marvelous job and you are a living proof of what can be done. I have some colleagues, I'm working locally, so I think this is all good. RPG, I think this is wonderful. Our
Absolutely.
show can our show can be a catalyst.
Well, absolutely. Today we are talking in general terms, but in future we would like to have Dr. Roshani back and we can talk on specific topics, like diabetes and other issues which are impacting us, and definitely work on that. And Dr. Sanghani, as Dr. Garg has mentioned that a lot of work has started happening now. People are getting aware, and empowerment is the key to the success of this movement. Especially for the youngsters, as I asked you about the fast food approach, everybody loves that, and especially the youngster. So it becomes very difficult to reach them out and talk about these things what we are talking in general terms, and they're not able to get it so far, not only in the west, even in India also now the same kind of culture that is prevailing, where fast foods have taken over our lives. So how to work with the youngsters, what would be your recommendations for them?
Yeah, I get this a lot. So I work with adults. I'm an adult endocrinologist, so adult hormone imbalance, and that's where diabetes and weight and hormones come from in my field is adult hormone disorders. And they have kids. So once they've got that trust and confidence
Right.
or friends and family, right? And they'll say, my kid doesn't listen to me. And when we probe a little bit, again, I come back to what we started with, is humans have a desire to thrive and flourish. Children are probably less corrupted and contaminated with bad habits. And I think, as I'm a parent of two lovely girls, and we're lucky to have them in our life. And if we realize that these kids are not doing this or making these choices to become sick, they're not doing it to make my life difficult as a parent. So can I stop taking it so personally and realize that kids learn from what we do, not from what we say?
Yeah.
And so if it is, parents will say they go into the cabinet and they finish all the stuff that's kept for the guests. Well, why do you think your guests need to be fed that?
Right.
Oh, no, but when guests come, like, why? As an adult, you are setting precedent that this is something special, this is something unique, something novel, something precious. When a big event comes, when we're hosting people, that's when we should have these celebratory foods as a symbol. So the kids are learning that. The kids are learning to aspire towards those things. So if you think it's not fit for your kids, why are you feeding it to your guests? Right? Don't we have a saying in Indian culture that guest is equivalent to God?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, so the thing is, it's not about parents fighting kids and saying, oh, kids these days, they don't listen. I think parents need to also realize that the modern kids are extremely smart and kids do want to be healthy. In fact, kids would be very open to the idea of aesthetics and looking healthy and looking fit and now being strong is a thing in their generation. Not to do like eating disorder kind of over skinny, looking for eating disorder kind of encouragement, but being strong and fit. That if you were to eat these foods, they would give you strength. And that's actually, I've read and studied this as well, because I was a mother who didn't know how to teach my kids how to eat well. And there are beautiful books. There is a book called Fearless Feeding for parents who are actually really facing these psychological struggles with their kids. And the amazing thing is, we talked about hunger. If you don't feed kids junk in between meals, and if you only allow them opportunity to eat at breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the house, then they will eat when they're hungry. And if it's dinner time and they're not hungry, food will be on the table for the specified dinner time when it's family time. And how you enforce your parenting discipline is a parenting role. It's not easy to be a parent. And when the food is taken away, dinner is over. But then the parents will say, no, but they use their pocket money to go and buy things in between on the sly. It's like, who gave them the pocket money? Parent.
Right.
Right. So it's not easy when the thing turns around and comes back on the parent. It's like, no, but I wanted you to fix my kid. I just want you to make my kid behave and listen to me. So you realize that there's actually a parenting challenge also, which is how do we empower this parent to be that role model and to be consistent with what they want the kids to do.
Very true. Absolutely. Do you run some online programs also, Dr. Sanghani?
Oh, so all my work is online. I live in Mumbai, but my work has expanded globally. And so I have patients in Toronto, I have patients in Vancouver, in the US, in
Wonderful. So
Europe.
if anybody wants to learn more
Yeah.
about the kind of work that you're doing, do you have a website or where people can contact you?
Yes. So I have my own Instagram handle, which is my first name and my last name. It's there's an A in there, although we don't pronounce the A. So Roshani. And I'm also on YouTube with Rayson Health, and I can share those links with you. And I'm on LinkedIn. So, but yes, we are available. We want to spread knowledge. We want to empower people, families, healthcare providers. I hope that in the next one generation, we should be able to put some dent into these raging epidemics that we face. And I feel like the time is now. The time is now.
Very true. And before I let you go, what, in brief, if you can let us know what to bring in our pantries and what to throw out of our pantries, you mentioned a little bit. So what to do over there?
Yeah, maybe. So people don't like a sense of loss. Again, when you think of sales tactics, they always want you to feel like you got something extra for free rather than you took something away from me. So we have this in the MBA world, in the business world, they call it, we're very loss averse. We don't like losing things. So if I go to a health practitioner's consult and the first thing they tell me is throw this away, throw this away, throw this away. Now I'm having like FOMO. And people actually do this is before they come to my office, before they knew what I'm about, they would go and hog at the bhel puri wala before coming because it's like the last supper because I think she's going to tell me to stop it. So let me stuff it in my body now before they take it away.
Right.
So, right. So this is the game. This is the game. And I don't play this game.
Right.
That is a pleasure food, right? So again, if you keep processed food in your house or junk food in your house, it's more likely you've basically reduced the habit friction.
Yeah.
So if you want to inculcate or make easier to do healthy habits and you want to keep your bad habits more difficult, like, when I was in the US, I trained in a smoking cessation program as a chief resident. I wanted to train my juniors how to train their patients to quit smoking. And I lived in Chicago at the time. It's cold, like more than half of the year it's cold. And so one of the things they said was that a smoker can do is the first step could be make the home a no smoking zone. So now you've increased the friction of the habit that doesn't help you, which is I have to put on my winter coat and my snowshoes to go outside and smoke. So make the unhealthy habit more difficult. So if you don't stock it in your house, again, I'm not saying throw it away from your pantry. I'm saying if you stock it in your house, your bad habit is going to be easier. If you don't stock it in your house, your unhealthy habit will not be easier. Choice is yours. Right? But along with that, don't give them the FOMO up front is, oh, I'm going to lose my junk food from my pantry. I need it. What about my midnight cravings and all? Don't do that to them. First, give them something. Is protein. Plan to put protein at every meal. Can you find a way to plan protein to be the star of your 3 major meals of the day? And then observe how much you need those pantry snacky, junky things. And that's what happens. So in my house, when people come with gifts and birthdays and visitors from abroad, they bring chocolates. And what happens in my house is the chocolates just stay in my fridge for like a year. It's there. But we don't have a desire to go and raid that thing because we've been ensuring enough protein through the day. When we want to have the sweet, we have it. So the tip for the audience is, can you be conscious about protein and then observe how your cravings go, and then think about the habit friction. Which habits do you want to emphasize, and which habits do you want to de-emphasize?
Excellent, excellent. What a wonderful way to approach, Dr. Garg. That's really excellent because the kind of approach which is being adopted by Dr. Sanghani is really, I think, going to be very fruitful. And Dr. Garg, in conclusion, what would you like to say?
Yeah, no, I think this has been a wonderful hour, and I think I see this as a beginning, Roshni, and we would like to co-opt you in our quest for healthy civil society. And there's so much in common. So you give me hope, and I feel inspired. So we're going to be working together. That's wonderful. Now, if I could just ask you one practical thing, you talk about protein focus. There's some very quick examples of protein for Indian context, Indian vegetarian diet, which people can have?
Oh yeah, sure. Yes, so I'll start with some vegetarian options first. Is dairy products, so milk, cheese, paneer, curd, right? If you are vegan, then that would be out, and you would be looking at more of tofu and nuts as your plant-based or soya-based, so like edamame, tempeh, as your plant-based, along with, of course, the dals and the pulses, the legumes. Now, one thing to know about vegetarian protein sources is they come with their own natural carbohydrates. So if you're going to look at like rajma or chawal, right? Rajma chawal as a combination, a popular combination, or chola bhatura. So the beans, the legumes themselves come with a large amount of carbohydrate. So as you look at taking beans, you're going to have natural satiety. It's going to be very filling. A bowl full of rajma. I mean, imagine that I give you a bowl full of rajma. You're going to be full. It's not going to be like you can eat buckets and buckets of it. So then you'll have to decide how much of carbohydrate you want to pair along with that, since you're also trying to meet your protein target. So the beans, the nuts and seeds, the tofu or soya-based products, and dairy. These would be your classic vegetarian or vegan options. And in the non-vegetarian, of course, all the animal-based products which come there, eggs, chicken, fish, poultry, red meat. And again, we're looking for trying to minimize, everybody asks me this, is it okay to have so many animal, or what do you say about vegan versus carnivore versus keto? And I don't really get polarized like that. You have your cultural beliefs, whatever way works for you with your belief systems, do that, because you need to find a way to sustain it. It's much harder to get your protein to target being a vegetarian because of the carbohydrates that come, and because they have less protein per serving in vegetarian. It's much easier to get protein to target if you have access to animal protein. It's just a much more protein dense food. So wherever it's possible, sure, go for those and get your protein to target.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Dr. Arun Garg and Dr. Roshani Sanghani, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure interacting with both of you, and especially Dr. Sanghani. Your approach is wonderful and it's excellent. Rather than being judgmental, bringing them on board and then making them realize what is good or bad for them will work wonders. And as Dr. Garg had mentioned before we started the program, this is going to be a lovely discussion. It has turned out to be a lovely discussion. Once again, if you could share your website, please.
Yes, we are Reisan Health, REISAAN health.com.
Wonderful, G. Thank you very much for your time and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day in Canada.
Thank you.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll connect and follow up. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
G.
you, RPG.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਅਰੁਣ ਗਰਗ ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਸੰਘਾਨੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਾਈਫ ਸਟਾਈਲ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਰਿਵਰਤਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਪਣੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਪੀਡੈਮਿਕ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਡਾਇਬਟੀਜ਼ ਵੱਧ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਹਾਰਟ ਡਿਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਵੱਧ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਹੋਰ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਾਡੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੇ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਾਇਟ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਰੋਲ ਪਲੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸੰਘਾਨੀ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਇਹੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਾਈਂਡਫੁਲਨੈਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਡੋਪਟ ਕਰੀਏ ਅਤੇ ਖਾਣ ਪੀਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੰਜ਼ਿਊਮ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੇਤਨ ਹੋਈਏ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਖਾਣਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਾਣਾ ਹੈ। ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮਾੜੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚੰਗੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਦੁਹਰਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਮਾੜਾ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਫਾਸਟ ਫੂਡ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸੋ ਇਹ ਰੀਅਲਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਟੋਮੈਟਿਕਲੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਫੂਡ ਹੈਬਿਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਅਡਾਪਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਨੂੰ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ raisinhealth.com ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਵੀ ਚਲਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਬਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਅਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੁੜ ਤੋਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਾਲ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਟੌਪਿਕਸ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਸੋ ਵਨਸ ਅਗੇਨ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਫॉर योर टाइम। इट वाज अ pleasure having you all involved in today's show. If you also want to be a part of this program, if you have any feedback, you can contact me through WhatsApp at 604-603-7555, or you can email me at harpreetsingh@gmail.com. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe and enjoy yourself.